Hello, everybody, and welcome to Infinity Shattergrounds. I'm joined by Killian to take us through Phase 1, what people can expect from the upcoming campaign as the fate of Concilim is being fought over by a whole host of reprobates. So, Killian, for people who aren't aware of Endsong and how things ended up, do you want to tell us a little bit about how things went horribly wrong on Concilim first then?
Yes, so the Combined Army have been invading the human sphere since all the way back in the second edition, and they'd broken through the various blockades, they'd taken some areas of Paradiso, and they were attacking the O12 home planet of Concilim. It's the most important planet in the human sphere because it's where essentially Space UN are based. And it's sort of like they got the most importance to humanity as a whole. They've even taken over one of the circulars, which are the sort of the wormhole systems for transporting between different areas of space. So they were invading Concilim because that's where humanity had stored an alien supercomputer known as Tezenci Digester, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's essentially an alien supercomputer that might be traveling backwards through time, and it records all the information about different civilizations and then sends it somewhere, but we don't know where. But it was originally on Dawn. The old Toa took it to Paradiso, and then from Paradiso it was captured by Aleph, by Achilles specifically, who managed to grab it, and it was taken back to a place known as the Penny Arcade, which was a secret research facility on Concilim. So the Combined Army found out it was on Concilim and started invading Concilim, and they were very, very close to grabbing the Tezenci Digester, except it was stolen from under their noses by, of all people, the Toa Spiral Corps, who are the Toa mercenary unit, who decided that they couldn't let the Combined Army have the Tezenci Digester. But then as they were trying to steal it and take it off planet and hopefully back to Toa space, they got ambushed by the Combined Army. And when they were ambushed by the Combined Army, they decided that if they couldn't get it away from the Combined Army, then nobody would have it. So they activated its defense protocols. It went into defensive mode and it exploded.
That's fairly defensive.
Yes, that's very defensive. When it exploded, it essentially broke space because when you blow up a big, massive alien supercomputer from the future, it tends to have nasty effects. So it created these areas known as Quantum Anomaly Zones on the planet of Concilim. And there are 6 of them because the Tezenci Digester sent out probes, which were then distributed to various parts of Concilim. And whenever the main one went, those one went too. So it's not just the one zone on Concilim, there's at least 6 of them. And these zones are destabilizing the planet, bending reality, and really messing things up.
But the good news is help is on the way in the form of the hegemony.
Yes. So the interesting thing is that the Combined Army were invading the planet, but when this happened, they did the most unexpected thing, which was they declared a truce. And they basically said, okay, we really want the Tezenci Digester, but if the planet goes, the Tezenci Digester goes with it. So we're going to offer a truce. And in order to stop the quantum anomaly zones from destroying the planet, we're going to offer you this technology as these dampeners, which will stop the expansion of the quantum anomaly zones. However, they had a couple of conditions. One of them was that they kept all the territory that they'd seized throughout the human sphere, which is not good for a couple of factions. And also they had some representation in the O12 Parliament, which I think is called the Uber House. So the situation is now very much that the Combined Army have stopped their invasion. They still want to get the Tezenci Digester, but they're now being a little bit more cordial with the human factions and have even got a representative who's arguing their case in the Combined Army Uber House.
Yeah, so things are going obviously swimmingly for humanity. And the O12 in general has had to rely on the other human factions to come in and help them sort of get these quantum anomaly zones under control. And that is where the Shatterground campaign is going to be kicking off as the various factions want to not only help, but also progress their own cause within this area, either to get their hands on more of the alien tech coming in to see exactly how that plays out, or just to end up requiring O12 to owe them in the future.
Exactly. So the thing about these devices that the Combined Army have supplied is that they're not sharing the technology and how they work. They're just providing the devices themselves. And there was a whole lot of them coming through the wormhole with the extra fleet, but it ran into a spatial anomaly and half of it has been destroyed. So rather than having loads of these devices to contain the Quantum Anomaly Zones, they only have a few. And because there's not enough troops, O12 troops, to deploy these things, they're relying on the other factions to come and essentially help out. But the other factions are looking at this as a way to sort of, gain more influence over the O12 Parliament, and also maybe have a couple of very secret things happening in the background while they're here on the most important planet in the human sphere.
So that's the setup, folks. Now, there are 6 areas to fight over, and we're going to take a quick look at each of those so people have an idea of what they can expect to see. And first up will be Lorena.
Lorena is this beautiful, beautiful island that's in the middle of one of the seas. The location for phase 1 is called the Bleu Gate, and it's a harbour and island where basically all the rich citizens have their villas and things all around the sides. And there's also a planetary research facility in this area as well.
It's always good to see Space Monaco getting a run out.
Well, this isn't quite Space Monaco. I've heard this described by Gutierre as this is space, what's it called? The place in the US, Martha's Garden.
Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, Martha's Vineyard. So that's the one. The Space Martha's Vineyard. This is where the elite have their homes. Space Monaco actually is here, but it comes later. So the 2 factions who are contesting this, the main 2 factions, are Aleph and Nomads. And they both have different reasons for wanting to contest this area. Aleph want to make sure that they are in good with the elite of the human sphere, because any influence they have over the elite in the human sphere obviously helps their cause, because they want to be seen as, we're humanity's protector, we're the only supercomputer AI you should trust, and we look after, all our people in the human sphere. So it makes sense for them to be in good with the richest in society. Nomads, on the other hand, will do anything that they can to undermine Aleph, and that means, ruining Aleph's plans. But while you're in this area with all the rich people who are all about, it might also be worth doing a little bit of illicit organized crime while you're there, because there's plenty of rich people who want to get rid of their wealth, maybe illicitly, and get off the planet. So you got an idea to try and make profit when profit's available.
Fantastic stuff. And the mission for that area is
superiority. Now, this is an interesting mission. It's a direct action mission, so it doesn't have a lot of complication in it. And it's an easy one to play because it's one of the simplest missions in the entire sort of ITS to play with.
Next up, the super fantastic great Huaqiao are up against the JSA in Huaqiao.
So Huaqiao is a place where there's a number of high energy research facilities. It's an area that has a high population of Yujing citizens, and it also has a small sort of settlement of former Yujing Japanese citizens who are there from before the Japanese uprising. But the whole area has a lot of very high energy physics research facilities, and it's also the location of a thing known as the Master Clock. And the Master Clock is a bit like our sort of Greenwich Mean Time, except it controls it throughout all of human sphere space. It's like their standard time measurement unit. So all the sort of transport by the circulars, and also all the sort of broadcasts of things like Aristea, are all based off the time that's given by the new calendar, which is then defined by the quantum clock.
Which is very important. If that goes away, navigation throughout the galaxy is done for. But more importantly, if somebody has control over it, it gives them a massive advantage.
Exactly. If you control the quantum clock, you can essentially disrupt all communication and all travel. Nothing will be set at the same time anywhere in the human sphere.
Okay, the scenario there is cryogenics.
Yes. Scenario this is cryogenics, which is a scenario from last year's ITS. So it isn't even in this year's ITS document. It's an interesting one, and it's actually been changed significantly for this year's for this campaign. So yes, it's going to be different to what you remember, but it's a good mission to play. The 2 factions fighting over this are Yujing and JSA. Now, Yujing are very heavily invested in the physics research facilities in this location, and a lot of their sort of technicians and engineers are working at the high energy research facility, which is very important for their future development. The JSA are looking to protect the small settlement of their citizens who have been there from before the uprising, but they want to make sure that there's no reprisals against them while they're there. And should any evacuation have to occur, they want to make sure that their citizens get out first ahead of anybody else.
It's good to see the JSA and Little Kyoto.
Yes, Little Kyoto, that's what it's called.
Pushing
it's
on.
It's called Bhai, but it's called Little Kyoto.
Yeah, by the filthy Yujing. It'll be interesting to see how that outpouring of sort of expansive civil war continues. Just because they're far from home doesn't mean they can't still kick off.
Yujing now are in control of this area. JSA would be in sort of second place, and then all the factions would be third.
Okay. Next up, we have Bhai.
So this is the Bhai, and the location for the phase one is the Terraforming Environmental Studies campus. So Bhai University is a university that's up on this high plateau in the center of one of the continents. It's where they have a lot of research into terraforming for basically different planets in the human sphere. There's a big research facility there that Huaqiao are heavily involved in because they're the big terraforming faction. They have a lot of their researchers at this location. The Quantum Anomaly Zone in this area is deep in the bedrock, and it's starting to affect the tectonic plates in the area. So there's a lot of earthquakes and things happening. And in fact, the Quantum Anomaly Zone is spinning down towards the planet's core in this area. So if it goes wrong here, it'll actually get to the planet's core and potentially destroy the whole planet. I
imagine that will have repercussions far beyond if things go particularly badly there. So maybe for once, stop fighting amongst yourself, people.
Well,
work together.
In that vein, the Combined Army are sending researchers to this area to help contain it, because if this area goes wrong, the whole planet goes. And the two factions who are contesting this area are Huaqiao and Combined Army. Yeah. With Huaqiao ahead, Combined Army second, and then all other factions third.
And the scenario there is going to be Cutthroat.
Yes, Cutthroat. So Cutthroat, it's a very good mission, very direct action, and it's all about basically killing the enemy's lieutenants. So it's sort of like an assassination mission.
Just make sure that you don't accidentally kill some of the scientists who are trying to hold the world together.
Yes, that would be bad. That would be very bad.
That would be very bad. Does anybody hold a significant portion of that region?
Huaqiao would be more ahead in this area, Combined Army third, then all the factions third, all the factions are then third place.
All right. Okolnir?
Okolnir is this port city where the majority of Concilim's sort of fishing fleet is based. And in this area, what they essentially do is they send out massive harvesters into the ocean that are big trawlers. They gather in the catch, and then it's processed and sent off around the planet, but also off system as a main trading good, because Concilim has these very big oceans full of lots and lots of sea animals, fish, etc. that are one of their main exports.
All right. And in this area, Adriana are coming up against Panoceana.
Yes, in this area, it's Ariadne versus Pano, who are the sort of contesting it. Pano, because they have a water plan of their own, they send a lot of their Varuna troops to manage things here. It's also because they want to protect the trade output of this. A lot of Panoceana companies have facilities here that are big business, so they want to make sure that those facilities are okay. Trade continues to happen, and they just happen to have some very good aquatic troops who are good at managing things in this area.
Always handy.
Ariadne they were kind of relegated to sort of secondary sort of policing duties in this area rather than really helping out too much. But that's allowed them to make a lot of contacts with the normal dock workers in this area, and also the gangs and organized crime who are based in this location. And they're hoping to gain more influence with them, undermine Pano, and then also sort of make connections that will boost their standing in the human sphere.
And this little hub that they're working within is part of a sort of expanded chain, because it pushes out into the orbital rings and then the sort of the trade routes, I suppose.
Yeah, because so much leaves this area and goes to get traded elsewhere in the human sphere. It's one of the main export points for the whole planet.
And the scenario people will be coming into is looting and sabotaging.
Yes, looting and sabotaging, which is all about breaking stuff, for lack of a better term. So this mission is all about trying to just sort of sabotaging and reading the opponent's plans. And it's very thematic for this one because they're both trying to wreck each other's facilities.
Who has the advantage within Okolnir then?
So Pano start with the advantage in this area. Ariadne are second, then other factions would be third.
And then we are into Montalbán.
It's the area that is kind of like Space Monaco. So this is a very fancy place with like a lot of casinos, hotels, lovely beaches, a yachting club, everything like that. But it also has an underwater research facilities nearby. So I describe this area more like sort of like, imagine James Bond Monaco, where all the fancy spy stuff happens up on the shores, amongst all the casinos and the yachts, everything like that. But the secret underwater base is down there where the supervillain has their lair, or the mad scientists have their lair. In this case, actual mad scientists have their lairs down there. Okay. And that becomes very thematic for the mission that you're going to be playing.
The mission itself is Panic Room.
Yes. So essentially what is a Panic Room is a scenario where there is a plague spreading in from the sides, and you have to get troops into a room in the center that's safe. And what I imagine is going on here is that one of the underwater facilities, something has gotten loose, or the place is flooding, and it's time to get out. And both you and your opponent will be trying to get units into that panic room and keep them safe as the whole place essentially drowns.
The significant factions in this area are Pano and Nomads. So
yes.
Popping up again.
So Pano, again, seeking to sort of protect all their wealthy citizens who use this place as a sort of location to hang out and do spying and go to the casinos, as you would Space Monaco.
Yeah.
The Nomads are looking to try and make some sort of inroads here with the rich and powerful, gain some more influence. But also, they have several of the underwater research facilities. They've leased them for various types of mad experiments, including, and this is genuine, super intelligent octopuses that they're using as part of spacecraft manufacture on the Nomad ships.
Why would it not be?
Why would it not be? Exactly, yeah. Nothing can go wrong with super intelligent octopuses.
If many hands make light work, then many cephalopods should do the same. Yeah. So
Pano start with the advantage in that area, Nomad second, and all the factions third.
So that'll be significant for Pano then as to whether or not they can get it. And I imagine if you've got a lot of underwater facilities, if things do go wrong, you can always just decompress. And then that deals with any significant problems. All you need to do is
bring all your troubles.
Yeah, just bring a pump later on and start again.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we round this off then with a visit to the capital of Edda.
Capital city of the planet, probably the most important city on the whole planet. Mm-hmm. This is where O12 have most of their major sort of administrative places. It's where the majority of the population of the planet live as well. And it's also got the biggest spaceport on the planet. Okay. And the location in phase 1 is the Rhodan main spaceport, which is where basically most of the traffic in and out of Concilim happens to. It's where a lot of the military facilities are based for planetary defense. So it's very important to basically any faction that wants control of the airspace over the planet and indeed access to the planet itself.
Because the spaceport being a high-value target at the best of times, but also with the defensive network around it, whoever holds that is going to be holding very much the key to the planet in some respects.
Mm-hmm. And should things get worse on the planet, it'll also be the main hub for people evacuating off Concilim. Mm-hmm. So if you control that, you can control who gets out, but also in, which is interesting.
Very important. O12 and the combined army are fighting it out there.
Mm-hmm. So obviously O12 want to protect their capital city, make sure the spaceport stays in their hands and make sure that it's still a route for getting in and out of the planet. And the combined army, if they control the spaceport and they control then all the airspace over that gives them significant leverage if they make any demands from O12 or the human sphere, because, they've got control of the capital city and the planet now.
And the scenario for this is very met because it is capture and protect. Very fitting for O12.
Yes, very much so. So capture and protect. Essentially, it's a capture the flag mission with beacons, but it's a good lot of fun to play and actually very thematic for this particular mission.
So there you have the 6 areas and what is going to be going on in them. Now, during the campaign, when you're playing, you can play any of the areas and the scenarios, but obviously a lot of this will come down to what the overall plan is. And generally with these big campaigns, the various factions are managed by a host of people. What's the sort of the best way to get involved with this then, Killian? Is it Discord and that sort of thing?
There is Discord for the different sort of factions will be on the Infinity General Discord. Mm-hmm. But then there'll also be different faction rooms within Shattergrounds where you'll be able to essentially find your local commander and try and coordinate then for the different missions that you're going to be playing. So it's very sort of community-based. These normal campaigns, you join your faction and you plot and scheme to sort of, take different areas. You can play sort of any of the missions you want with any faction, mm-hmm. but it's important for the factions who are trying to vie for an area to play that mission if possible, because that'll get them more points then towards controlling those areas.
Sure.
And controlling these areas is what's going to win the faction more influence and possibly win them the overall campaign at the end.
It's important to note, while some factions do have a significant presence in several areas, if you happen to go, well, I really want to fight in an underground or a deep sea lab or whatever it happens to be, it may not be the best place for your victory to go, because if, for example, you're playing Nomads and they've got a very minor third place or third tier sort of area of effect, then you can throw as many victories in there as possible, but you may not make a dent in who actually controls the area. So there's a lot of tactical planning that goes on with these campaigns, which is always fascinating to see how they play out.
It's also the fact that you can make agreements with other factions to say, oh, I'll put some more points into that area. So if I might be able to swing it in your favor, for example.
Destabilize.
Destabilize, exactly.
Now, the campaign website will be live probably by the time you see this. So you can go and sign up there. We'll also put the information on where you can get the PDF below as well. And Killian has been working away on some little articles to go into a bit more detail about each of the areas and the missions that are being played out there, because a lot of them have additional attributes because of the area you're fighting in that just change up how some of these play out.
So you may have played some of these missions before in ITS, but there are campaign special missions for these areas. And some of these campaign special missions really dramatically change what goes on, but they also make it a lot more fun. So yeah, definitely have a look at the PDF, and I'll have some articles hopefully up, which will give a bit more insight on the best way to play these missions with certain factions and how to sort of get an advantage over your opponent.
All right, fantastic stuff, folks. I hope you enjoy getting stuck into Infinity Shattergrounds over the next few weeks of the campaign. Myself and Killian will be back on a weekly basis to bring you up to speed with what's been happening across Concilim, and hopefully a massive JSA victory as well. Until next time.
We'll have to see.
Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.